I'm Zoe, 25F, and I've been engaged to my boyfriend Ryan, 27M, for about 6 months now. We've been together for 4 years and have lived together in our own apartment for the last 3 years. We're both really excited about our upcoming wedding, which is scheduled for next month. Ryan and I met during our college days. We were both part of the same study group for our economics class. I remember being drawn to his quick wit and infectious laugh. We started as friends, often grabbing coffee after study sessions, but it didn't take long for us to realize there was something more between us. Our first date was at a local pizza place, where we ended up talking for hours, long after we'd finished eating. Ryan comes from a very close-knit family. His parents, David, 53M, and Karen, 50F, own a successful local bakery that's been in the family for 3 generations. The bakery, Sweet Memories, is known throughout our town for its delicious pastries and warm, welcoming atmosphere. Ryan grew up helping out at the bakery, and some of his fondest childhood memories are of kneading dough with his dad or decorating cookies with his mom. They live in a large house that's been in their family for generations. It's a beautiful Victorian-style home with a wraparound porch and a big backyard where they often host family barbecues in the summer. Ryan has 2 siblings, an older sister, Megan, 29F, who's married with a 2-year-old daughter, and a younger brother, Martin, 24M, who's still in college studying business with plans to eventually take over the family bakery. When Ryan and I first started dating, I got along great with his family. Karen was always warm and welcoming, often inviting me over for Sunday dinners and teaching me some of her secret family recipes. I enjoyed spending time with them during holidays and family gatherings. I come from a smaller family, it's just me and my parents, who live a few hours away, so I love the bustling energy of Ryan's large extended family. I have fond memories of my first Thanksgiving with Ryan's family. Karen went all out, cooking a feast that could have fed an army. Everyone pitched in. Megan made her famous green bean casserole, Martin was in charge of mashing the potatoes, and Ryan and I were tasked with making the pumpkin pies. It was chaotic and loud, with cousins, aunts, and uncles all crammed into the house, but it was also filled with laughter and love. I remember thinking how lucky Ryan was to have grown up in such a warm, loving environment. However, things started to change when we announced our engagement. Ryan proposed on our 3-year anniversary. He took me back to the pizza place where we had our first date, but this time, he had arranged for the owner, a family friend, to spell out "Will you marry me?" in pepperoni on our pizza. It was cheesy, pun intended, but perfect for us. We were on cloud 9 and couldn't wait to share the news with our families. My parents were thrilled, immediately offering their congratulations and support. Ryan's family seemed happy too, at first. Karen hugged us both tightly, and David broke out a bottle of champagne to celebrate. But as the evening wore on, I started to notice some tension. Karen kept making comments about how excited she was to have me officially join the family, and how nice it would be to have us around all the time. It wasn't until a few days later that we realized what was going on. Ryan and I were having dinner with his parents when Karen casually mentioned that she was thinking of redecorating Ryan's old room for us. We were confused at first, but then it dawned on us, they were assuming we would move into their family home after getting married. This came as a complete shock to both of us. We had never discussed this with them and had always planned on continuing to live in our own place. When we told them about our plans to stay in our apartment, Karen especially seemed upset and disappointed. She couldn't understand why we wouldn't want to live with them, insisting that it made the most sense financially and for the sake of family closeness. At first, it was just subtle hints and comments about how nice it would be to have us living there. Karen would mention how lonely the house felt with just her and David, or how much easier it would be for us to save money if we didn't have to pay rent. But as the wedding got closer, the pressure intensified. Karen started talking about how she was preparing Ryan's old room for us, buying new curtains and bedding. She talked about how excited she was to have us there, to be able to have breakfast together every morning and family dinners every night. We tried to gently remind her that we had our own place, but she just brushed it off, saying things like, "Oh, you'll change your mind once you see how nice it'll be." Things came to a head last week when we had dinner at Ryan's parents' house. It was supposed to be a nice family dinner to discuss some wedding details. Megan and her husband were there with their daughter, and Martin had come home from college for the weekend. Everything seemed fine at first, with everyone cooing over Megan's daughter and talking about Martin's classes. But then Karen brought up the topic again, asking when we planned to move our things over. When we firmly told her that we weren't moving in, she got visibly upset. The room fell silent, and I could feel everyone's eyes on us. David tried to calm her down, but she went on a long rant about family values and how we were abandoning them. Karen accused us of being selfish, saying that family should stick together and that by choosing to live on our own, we were rejecting them. She brought up how Megan and her husband lived there, how it had always been the plan for all her children to live in the family home. She even went as far as to say that if we really loved them, we wouldn't even think of living elsewhere. Ryan tried to explain that we loved them but valued our independence and privacy. He talked about how we had built a life together in our apartment, how we had our routines and our own space. He assured them that we would still visit often and be involved in family activities, but that we felt it was important for us to have our own home as we started our married life. Karen then turned to me and accused me of turning Ryan against his family. She said I was selfish for wanting to keep him away from them, that I clearly didn't understand the importance of family. I was shocked and hurt by her words, as I had always tried to be respectful and kind to them. I had never once suggested to Ryan that we shouldn't live with his family, it had always been a mutual decision. The dinner ended on a really sour note, with Karen refusing to speak to us for the rest of the evening. As we were leaving, David pulled Ryan aside and told him that he needed to think about his priorities and that they were very disappointed in us. Ryan was visibly shaken by this, and the drive home was silent, both of us lost in our thoughts. Since then, we've been getting daily calls and messages from various family members, all trying to convince us to change our minds. Megan, who lives at home with her husband and daughter, called to tell us how great it is to have family support and how we're making a mistake. She talked about how helpful it was to have her parents around to help with the baby, and how much money they were saving by not having to pay rent. Even Martin, who's away at college, sent us a long text about how we're breaking their mother's heart. He said that Karen had called him crying, saying that she felt like she was losing her son. Martin pleaded with us to reconsider, saying that he was planning to move back home after college and that it would be great if we were all there together. Ryan is really torn up about this. He loves his family and hates disappointing them, but he also wants to start our married life together in our own space. He's always been close to his family, especially his mom. Growing up, he and Karen had a special bond. She was always the one he went to for advice or comfort. To have her so upset with him now is really taking a toll on him. I'm feeling guilty and stressed, wondering if I'm the cause of this family rift. But at the same time, I don't think it's fair for them to expect us to give up our independence just because it's what they want. I keep thinking back to all the plans Ryan and I have made for our future, how we've talked about eventually buying our own house, maybe getting a dog. None of those plans involve living with his parents. We're getting married in just a few weeks, and this whole situation is casting a shadow over what should be a happy time. Ryan's parents are threatening not to attend the wedding if we don't agree to move in with them. They say that if we go through with this decision, it's a clear sign that we don't value family, and they won't support our marriage. We're both stressed and unsure of how to handle this without completely alienating his family. Ryan has tried talking to his dad one-on-one, hoping he might be more reasonable, but David just keeps saying that Karen is heartbroken and that as a husband, he has to stand by her. I don't want to be the reason Ryan loses his relationship with his family, but I also don't want to start our marriage by giving in to their demands. We're both firm in our decision to live on our own, but the constant guilt-tripping and emotional manipulation are taking a toll on us. Ryan's been having trouble sleeping, and I can tell he's stressed all the time. We've talked about possibly postponing the wedding to give everyone time to calm down, but we've already put down non-refundable deposits and sent out invitations. Plus, it feels wrong to put our lives on hold because of this disagreement. I'm not sure what to do at this point. Should we stand our ground and risk damaging our relationship with Ryan's family? Or should we give in to keep the peace, even if it means sacrificing our independence? Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Update 1. It's been about 2 weeks since my last post, and unfortunately, things have only gotten worse. Ryan and I decided to stand our ground and not give in to his family's demands to move in with them after the wedding. We thought that if we remained firm but respectful, they would eventually come around and accept our decision. We were wrong. Last weekend, we had a small engagement party planned with some close friends. We had invited Ryan's family, hoping it would be a chance to smooth things over. We spent days preparing for it, cleaning our apartment from top to bottom and cooking all of Ryan's family's favorite dishes. I even made Karen's famous apple pie, hoping it would be a peace offering of sorts. As the party time approached, we kept glancing at the door, hoping to see Ryan's family walk in. But as the hours ticked by, it became clear they weren't coming. None of them showed up. We later found out that Karen had organized a family dinner at the same time as our party, effectively forcing Ryan's siblings and extended family to choose sides. This really hurt Ryan. He had been trying to reach out to his parents and siblings all week, leaving voicemails and sending texts, but they either ignored him or sent short, cold responses. Seeing that they would go so far as to boycott our engagement party and turn the rest of the family against us was a huge blow. I remember the moment Ryan realized they weren't coming. He had been standing by the window, constantly checking the street. When our last guest arrived and there was still no sign of his family, I saw the hope drain from his face. He put on a brave face for our friends, but I could see how much he was hurting. The day after the party, Ryan's aunt, Karen's sister, called him. She told him that Karen had been telling everyone that I was manipulating Ryan, turning him against his family, and that I had explicitly forbidden him from having any contact with them. According to Karen, I was jealous of Ryan's close relationship with his family and was trying to isolate him from them. Of course, none of this was true. Ryan and I had always made decisions together, and I had always encouraged his relationship with his family. It was clear that Karen was trying to paint me as the villain in this situation, probably hoping that if everyone turned against me, Ryan would leave me and come back to the family fold. Ryan was furious when he heard this. I had never seen him so angry. He immediately called his parents' house, determined to set the record straight. Karen answered, and for the first time since this all began, Ryan lost his cool. He confronted her about the lies she was spreading and demanded to know why she was trying to turn the family against us. Karen burst into tears, accusing Ryan of choosing me over his real family and saying that he was breaking her heart. She brought up all the sacrifices she had made for him over the years, how she had always put her children first, how she had worked long hours at the bakery to provide for them, how she had always been there for him. She said that by refusing to live with them, Ryan was throwing all of that back in her face. David got on the phone and told Ryan that if he didn't come to his senses and agree to move in after the wedding, they would cut him off completely, emotionally and financially. Even though Ryan is financially independent, his parents had offered to pay for a significant portion of our wedding. Now, they were threatening to withdraw that support just 3 weeks before the ceremony. This threat hit us hard. We had planned our wedding counting on that financial support. Without it, we would struggle to pay for everything we had already booked and arranged. It felt like they were using their financial leverage to force us into compliance. We spent the next few days in a daze, trying to figure out what to do. We looked at our budget and realized that without his parents' contribution, we would have to either postpone the wedding or significantly scale it back. Ryan was torn between standing up for our decision and not wanting to hurt his family or ruin our wedding plans. I suggested we could take out a loan to cover the costs, but Ryan was hesitant to start our married life in debt. We considered asking my parents for help, but I knew they couldn't afford to contribute much more than they already were. We even briefly discussed giving in to Karen's demands, but we both knew that would be a disaster in the long run. After a lot of discussion and tears, we made a decision. We decided to cancel the big wedding we had planned and instead have a small, intimate ceremony with just our closest friends. It's not what we had originally envisioned, but we realized that starting our marriage on our own terms was more important than a lavish ceremony. Making those cancellation calls was heartbreaking. We had to let go of the beautiful venue we had booked, cancel the caterer, and tell the band they were no longer needed. Each call felt like we were chipping away at the dream wedding we had planned. But at the same time, there was a sense of relief. We were taking control of our situation, refusing to let Ryan's family's manipulation dictate our choices. We sent out messages to our guests explaining the change of plans. We were vague about the reasons, not wanting to air the family drama, but many of our friends figured out what was going on and have been incredibly supportive. Several of them offered to help with the new, smaller ceremony. One friend offered to officiate, another said she'd handle the flowers, and another offered to bake our cake. Ryan tried one last time to reach out to his family, sending them a heartfelt email explaining our decision and expressing his hope that they would still be a part of our lives. He poured his heart out in that email, telling them how much he loved them and how he hoped they could find a way to accept our decision. He reassured them that us living separately didn't mean we were cutting them out of our lives, and that we still wanted them to be a big part of our future. So far, we haven't received any response. As for me, I'm struggling with feelings of guilt and anger. I know I'm not really to blame for this situation, but it's hard not to feel responsible for the rift in Ryan's family. I keep wondering if there was something I could have said or done differently to prevent things from getting this bad. At the same time, I'm angry at how manipulative and cruel they're being, especially Karen. It hurts to see how much pain they're causing Ryan, and I'm finding it hard to imagine ever having a good relationship with them again, even if they do come around. Ryan is putting on a brave face, but I know he's hurting deeply. He's started seeing a therapist to help him process everything that's happening. I can see how conflicted he is. On one hand, he's angry at his family's behavior and sure of our decision, but on the other hand, he misses them terribly and feels guilty for disappointing them. There are moments when I catch him looking at old family photos with a sad expression, and it breaks my heart. We're trying to focus on our love for each other and the life we're building together, but it's hard when this dark cloud is hanging over us. We're both having trouble sleeping, and there's a tension between us that wasn't there before. We're not fighting, but there's a heaviness in our interactions, a sadness that we can't seem to shake. Our new, smaller wedding is in just 2 weeks. We're both anxious about whether Ryan's family will make any last-minute attempts to disrupt it or if they'll maintain their silence. We've warned a few friends who will be attending about the situation, just in case Karen or anyone else tries to show up and cause a scene. It's sad that we even have to consider these things for what should be the happiest day of our lives. Either way, we're determined to go through with it and start our married life together, with or without their blessing. We know it won't be easy, but we're committed to supporting each other through this difficult time. We're hoping that once we're married and they see that we're happy and doing well on our own, maybe they'll come around. But we're also preparing ourselves for the possibility that this estrangement might be long-term or even permanent. I never imagined that planning our wedding would be like this. Instead of choosing flowers and tasting cakes, we're strategizing how to handle potential family drama and mourning the loss of relationships we thought would last a lifetime. But through it all, Ryan and I have grown closer. We're facing this challenge as a team, and I know that whatever happens, we'll get through it together. Update 2. It's been about a month since my last update, and a lot has happened. Our small, intimate wedding ceremony took place 2 weeks ago, and while it wasn't what we originally planned, it turned out to be a beautiful and meaningful day. In the days leading up to the wedding, we braced ourselves for potential drama from Ryan's family. We had nightmares about Karen showing up and causing a scene, or about receiving a cease and desist letter from a lawyer. The stress was taking its toll on both of us. Ryan was losing weight and I was breaking out in stress-induced hives. To our surprise, we received a text from Megan, Ryan's sister, 2 days before the ceremony. She said she and her husband wanted to come to the wedding and that she was sorry for how things had escalated. We were cautiously optimistic and told her we'd be happy to have them there, but we also warned her that if this was some kind of ploy orchestrated by Karen, we wouldn't hesitate to ask them to leave. On the day of the wedding, Megan and her husband showed up. It was a bit awkward at first, but they seemed genuinely happy to be there. Ryan was emotional seeing his sister, and they had a long, private conversation before the ceremony. Megan explained that she had started to see how manipulative their mother was being and that she didn't agree with how Ryan was being treated. She said Martin, their younger brother, felt the same way but was afraid to go against their parents. Megan shared some details about what had been happening at home. Apparently, Karen had become increasingly erratic, oscillating between bouts of tears and fits of rage. She had been calling Ryan's childhood friends, telling them not to attend the wedding. She had even gone so far as to call my workplace, trying to convince my boss that I was unstable and should be fired. Thankfully, my boss knew me well enough to dismiss Karen's claims. However, Ryan's parents and younger brother were noticeably absent. We later found out that Karen had forbidden Martin from attending and had apparently thrown a fit when she learned Megan was going. Despite this, we tried not to let it overshadow our day. The ceremony itself was lovely. We held it in a small, picturesque park near our apartment. Our close friends rallied around us, helping with everything from setting up chairs to taking photos. The intimate setting allowed us to really feel the love and support of those present. Ryan was emotional during his vows, and I could tell he was thinking about his absent family members, but he also seemed more certain than ever about our decision to start our life together on our own terms. After the ceremony, we had a small reception at our favorite local restaurant. The owner, who knew about our situation, had closed the place to other customers and decorated it beautifully for us. It wasn't the grand reception we had originally planned, but it was perfect in its own way. We danced, laughed, and celebrated with the people who truly cared about us. After the wedding, we went on a short honeymoon. It was a much-needed break from all the drama, and it gave us time to reflect on everything that had happened and to start planning our future. We spent long hours talking about what we wanted our life together to look like, how we would handle future interactions with Ryan's family, and how we could build our own traditions and support system. When we returned, we found out that Karen had escalated her campaign against us. She had apparently been posting on social media about how her son had abandoned the family and how I had stolen him away. She shared old family photos with captions about how happy they used to be before I came along. Some extended family members and family friends had been reaching out to Ryan, concerned about what they were hearing. Ryan decided it was time to set the record straight. He wrote a long, detailed post explaining our side of the story, how we had always planned to live independently, how his parents had tried to manipulate us into moving in with them, and how they had ultimately chosen to cut us off when we didn't comply with their demands. He was respectful but firm, making it clear that while he loved his family, their behavior had been unacceptable. The response to Ryan's post was overwhelming. Many family friends and even some extended family members reached out to offer their support. They shared stories of how Karen had tried to control their lives too, and how they had struggled with setting boundaries with her. It was eye-opening for Ryan to realize that this wasn't just about us, but part of a larger pattern of behavior. Megan called us a few days after Ryan's post went up. She said that Karen was furious about the post and had been ranting about taking legal action for defamation. We're not too worried about that, as everything Ryan said was true, but it's still stressful to think about. On a more positive note, Megan said that Martin had read the post and it had really opened his eyes to the situation. He's still living at home while finishing college, so he's in a tough position, but he sent Ryan a supportive text. It meant a lot to Ryan to know that his siblings were starting to understand and support our position. As for David, Ryan's dad, we haven't heard anything directly from him. Megan told us that he's been very quiet about the whole situation and she thinks he might be starting to see how unreasonable Karen is being, but he hasn't taken any action to reach out or mend things with us. Ryan is doing better emotionally. He's sad about the situation with his parents, especially his mom, but he's also angry about how they've behaved and more certain than ever that we made the right decision. He's continued seeing his therapist, which has been really helpful for him in processing all of these complex emotions. We're focusing on settling into our married life and making plans for our future. We've talked about possibly moving to a new city for a fresh start, away from all this drama. Nothing's decided yet, but it's something we're seriously considering. The idea of building a life somewhere new, where we're not constantly worried about running into Ryan's parents or dealing with the fallout from this situation, is appealing. For now, we're taking things one day at a time. We're grateful for the support we've received from friends and some family members, and we're committed to building a life together based on mutual respect and independence. It's not the start to married life we imagined, but we're facing it together, and that's what matters most. Update 3. It's been about 2 months since my last update, and I wanted to share some significant developments in our situation. Shortly after my last post, we received an unexpected visit from David, Ryan's father. He came to our apartment one evening, looking tired and apologetic. He said he had finally stood up to Karen and told her that her behavior was unacceptable. Apparently, this led to a huge argument between them, and David had been staying with a friend for the past week. David apologized profusely for not intervening sooner and for allowing Karen's manipulative behavior to go on for so long. He admitted that he had always known it was wrong but had found it easier to go along with her demands than to confront her. Ryan was emotional during this conversation, expressing both his hurt at David's previous inaction and his appreciation for him finally taking a stand. We learned from David that Karen's behavior had been escalating. She had been calling and harassing our wedding guests who had attended our ceremony, accusing them of betraying the family. She had also shown up at Megan's house and created a scene when Megan refused to cut ties with us. This had apparently been the last straw for David. David told us that he was seriously considering separation from Karen if she didn't agree to seek professional help for her behavior. He asked for our forgiveness and expressed hope that we could rebuild our relationship, though he understood if we needed time. Ryan was cautiously optimistic about reconnecting with his father, but we both agreed that we needed to take things slow. We made it clear to David that while we appreciated his apology, we wouldn't consider any reconciliation with Karen unless she took responsibility for her actions and got help. A week after David's visit, we received a call from Martin. He told us that the situation at home had become unbearable. Karen's behavior had become increasingly erratic and he no longer felt comfortable living there. He asked if he could stay with us for a while until he figured out his next steps. We agreed, happy to be able to support Ryan's younger brother. Having Martin stay with us has been a positive experience. He's opened up about the toxic environment at home and how Karen's controlling behavior had affected him throughout his life. It's been healing for Ryan to connect with his brother and to know that he's not alone in his experiences. As for Karen, we haven't had any direct contact with her. We've heard through Megan that she's still angry and blaming everyone else for the situation. David is proceeding with a trial separation and has encouraged her to seek therapy, but so far, she's refused. This whole experience has been a roller coaster of emotions, but Ryan and I feel stronger as a couple. We've had to navigate some really tough decisions and stand firm in our boundaries, which has ultimately brought us closer together. We've decided to put our plans to move to a new city on hold for now. With Martin staying with us and the possibility of rebuilding relationships with some family members, we feel it's important to stay nearby for the time being.